Okay, here we go. I thought it'd be fun to do my first week update out in the backyard because the biggest thing that happened on week one was I got out in the garden and fixed up the garden and put in some new plants and went to the nursery and we went to Home Depot, we went to Lowe's, and that was a big deal because I really had been pretty mopey this spring. And I don't know whether it's the fact that I am on this weight loss program now and I can see maybe some better things out on the horizon, or if it was the Zepbound itself, because it did seem to give me more energy this week. And my 40-year-old son has been on GLP-1s in the past. Unfortunately, due to the cost, he's not on them currently. And I was talking to him about it, and he was like, yeah, Mom, they give you energy. So that's good. I was really worried about all the things I had read about. I was going to be nauseous. I was going to feel like, I couldn't get out of bed. I was going to be sleeping all the time. And whether it was just luck on my part or the fact the dose was only 2.5, I did not have any of those issues this week. So all in all, I felt like my week went really good. The very first day after I took my first injection, I felt a little flu-y the next morning, like not like I had the flu, but like maybe a bug was coming on, but not enough that I took any aspirin or Tylenol or anything like that. And that passed. That was really the only day I felt like that. And then the second day, I felt like the coffee didn't taste good. I was like, I don't like this. And so I had a cup of tea instead, but luckily that only lasted a day because, I want to have my coffee. Now, if you've watched my other two videos about taking my very first injection, and then I have a follow-up video on taking the second one, I wasn't really sure the first time I used the pen whether or not I used it right. Did I get the full dose? I kind of think I did based on doing it the second time. That was the biggest hurdle of week one, I think, was using the pen for the first time, doing the injection. It wasn't anywhere near as scary as I thought it would be. I was really fumbling around trying to understand what to do, but I can see, after you do it a couple times, I'm pretty sure that it's not going to be a major deal. And the biggest surprise I had, and I'm not sure how to connect this with taking the medications or whether it's just starting this diet, starting this YouTube channel, but the first couple of days, I was really emotional, like, crying at the Kodak commercial level of emotional. And I had a little disappointment. I couldn't go on a trip with my husband that I had planned to because our dog is like, 100 years old in human years. And it just wasn't feasible to leave her. And he was going for a paddling clinic. He's a marathon kayaker, of course, super fit compared to his not fit wife. But I was really disappointed to the point where I was crying about it. And that, I don't know if it was the drugs that made me emotional or just talking about losing weight. I'm somebody that was fat as a kid. If you're somebody that people used to call you names when you were a kid and, you dealing with being overweight all your life, it's a very emotional thing. My husband has never been heavy, and he really doesn't understand why I might feel about certain things the way I do. So, but he's very supportive. I'm not saying that he's not. He's super supportive of me going on this weight plan. He's always supportive of everything that I do. But if you're somebody that's been overweight or is overweight now and trying to lose weight, you know what I'm talking about. Like, it's a lot. It's a lot to think that I might lose a significant amount of weight, because even today we are watching some videos on YouTube about this Texas water safari that my husband's done in the past. And I have never gone down to the water safari route to watch him. I've been there at the end once, but it's just so hot and it's just so awkward for me to walk on rough terrain and so forth. So, that again, I was just sitting there thinking, maybe next year I'll be able to go down to the safari and be on the river with him and watch him do the race. So there's a lot of goals that are attached to being on this weight loss plan. And at 67, I feel like I've got a lot of years left. When you get to a certain age, you're always kind of calculating in your head, how many more years do I have? Now I calculate everything in terms of how old my granddaughter's going to be, because she's 9 months old now, and I just want to really see her get older and graduate from high school. So that's a lot. I have a lot of motivation to try to be healthier and to try to be able to do more things. So whether it was the taking the Zepbound, or whether it was just thinking about, what's ahead of me and what the actual accomplishment of my goals, I'm not sure, but I was a little more, than I usually am. But as I mentioned before, I had a huge burst of energy. It gets super hot in Austin during the summer, and so if you want to work on your garden and do all that kind of stuff, you usually try to do it in April and May, and I just hadn't felt like getting out. I think I was a little more depressed than I wanted to admit to myself, and really spent some time out here in my backyard garden. And it's a raised bed garden. It's not like it's super physically intensive, but got it all sorted out. Now I can sit in my office and look out the window and see my garden, and I'm feeling like I really accomplished a lot this week. One of the other things that was super interesting about my first week on Zepbound was they had said at the heart hospital that they were recommending the Zepbound because it quieted the food noise. And I was like, okay, what does that even really mean? But I have to say, I felt a lot better mentally. I have a lot of chatter in my brain sometimes. When you get to be a certain age, you're thinking about things that happened 40 years ago sometimes. I don't know if it's at the level of what would be clinically called intrusive thoughts, but it's definitely chatter. And that kind of went away, to a significant degree. And then later on in the week, like right before I was ready to take my second dose, it kind of upticked a little bit. And so the lack of mental chatter was a benefit that I really didn't expect. And I like that. I did try looking online to see if there was some explanation on why Zepbound or maybe other GLP-1 drugs would quiet your mental chatter, but it was pretty unclear. This is the thing about the brain. Nobody really knows how it works. The brain is a mystery. And I know my brain is a mystery to me a lot of times. So I guess I'm going to just take it as a win. And, I hope that continues. I took my first dose on Monday. And then on Saturday, my husband was out of town. And one thing I noticed is as soon as he went out of town, I'm sitting there by myself and I'm thinking, what could I eat? And that is an old pattern. That's emotional eating. And I think it's super important for myself anyway, to try to be emotionally aware. Finally, at age 67, I'm a lot better at it now than I used to be. But I was like, and I think food is like, in that sense, more like entertainment than anything else. But we don't keep a lot of snacks in the house. And like I said, my husband's super fit. So his idea of snacks are watermelon and apple slices. And to be honest, if that apple's not dipped in chocolate, I'm not really interested in it. So by what I had in the house, by the way I stocked the kitchen, that really helped on not giving into the emotional eating. And also I think just being aware of it and what was happening. And so the other thing I had to do though was make sure I made meals instead of just snacking. So I made sure I made a real dinner the 2 nights he was gone. I cooked some chicken and some vegetables and so forth. So that thing about getting enough protein, I can really see where people struggle with that if they're living alone. Luckily I cook for my husband, so we have a pretty set meal plan pattern, and that's going to benefit me, I think, moving forward. I did feel a little hungrier toward the end of the week, but I'm using an app to track my food and how much protein I eat. The doctor's office said I needed to eat 90 grams of protein a day, and sometimes that's a little bit of an effort. So I stayed in my calorie goal. I stayed in my protein goal. I think that was all really a positive. All in all, I think my first week went really well. I felt good. I was able to stick to my goals. So onward and upward. I'm really excited about being on this program, and I'm really enjoying sharing it with people who might be trying to be on a similar journey. So see you later.